Greetings, programmers. Busted Thumbs back again to start on a brand new project, one where you can watch me make an interesting Scratch program. Today we're going to do something a little different. All the previous programs that I've done with for these recordings so far have been games and have been a lot more focused on kind of player interaction and having some fun and or maybe doing it in the context of a competition. In this one, I want to explore some new things. Namely, I want to take a look at sound. And so what we're going to do in this particular program, one I'm calling Music Player Studio, is we're going to use some of the things that are built in for playing sounds in Scratch. But we're going to do a little bit more than that because I have some ideas to make this happen that will allow us also to explore a bit around the drawing items that are inside Scratch as well, using the pen to draw some things on the screen. And one of the interesting things you can do using the pen and using some sprites to do some, and the stamping method of sprites, is you can actually make a little bit of a text engine too. And what I mean by a text engine is Scratch doesn't have any way of displaying text on the screen. You can only like type text into sprites and then have those sprites show up. But if you wanted to make some text appear that was based on, say, the text inside a variable or something, Scratch doesn't really give you a way to do that without writing something like a text engine to do it. So in this series, it's going to take, of course, like all the other series, it's going to take several videos to do this. But we're going to get to the things like how to use the sound to play interesting musical arrangements, and we're going to use the drawing to be able to visualize some of that music, and we'll get into actually displaying text as well. So the whole idea behind this one, and the way I like to do these things as usual, is to set up what it is we want to see when we get this project all put together. And the idea is that we're going to have a series of songs that we want to pick from. And those songs will, when we select it, we want to play them, it will visualize us the music on the screen in some way, and it will actually allow Scratch to play those songs. So I need a couple of backdrops to show how that's done. I'm going to convert this over to a vector mode, and then I'm going to have a screen here for select your song. Now we're not actually doing this right now, we're just kind of setting this up so that we know what kind of things we want to have in there, and later we'll get along to actually making these things work. So we're going to have something in here with a bunch of little buttons. Maybe there's one for twinkle, twinkle, twinkle little star. Little star, I cannot type. And maybe there's one for some other song. So I'm just going to say inside here, song 2, song 3. So what these are going to turn into later on, of course, are actual buttons with the songs that we want to have on them. Come on. Let's let these guys move. They'll be on the side here. And so this will be our opening screen. It's going to look something like that. And then we'll have a second screen. Let's call this one the selection menu. Selection menu. And then we're going to create another backdrop that we will draw from ourselves. And this one's going to be the actual kind of player screen. Or let's call it the music player. And what I want to have show up here when everything is said and done is that I want to have at the bottom here, about in this area, I want that to be a keyboard, a piano keyboard. And we'll draw inside that keyboard. We'll draw an actual representation of a piano, but then on top of that, when the music's playing, we'll like fill it in on the keys that are actually being pressed. Now underneath it all, have you ever seen any of those songs where you watch them on TV, and usually it's kids songs going along, and there's a little bouncing ball, and that bouncing ball, or maybe in karaoke you've seen this too, there's a little bouncing ball that says what the words are to the song, and there's a little ball that says when that you're actually supposed to sing them. So we're going to do something like that towards the bottom. So we'll call that the karaoke. I don't know how to spell karaoke, so let's just call it the words. And I'm sure the internet could tell me how to spell karaoke, but we'll just put that down here, and we'll have the little bouncing ball go along the top here. And then up here, the way it's going to work is it's going to maybe have a different representation of the song. I've been thinking of a couple of different ways to do that. One of them could be just like regular music inside. When you look at say a bit of piano music where it has those bars, the horizontal bars, the staffs that has to go with music. Another way to do it is we could make it even look like maybe a scrolling piano player with the little bars that when the old style piano players, the player pianos, they would kind of roll across a sheet of paper and there'd be little holes inside of it. Anyway, this is going to be a representation of the music. And then up here at the top, we'll have some of our options for kind of what we need to do, like going back, maybe changing what instruments we're listening to the music on, things like that. So our options will go inside of here. And now I've got a little sense of how I want to set this all up. So once I get that guy, oh, I see, that's the problem. I didn't have this in vector mode. That's all right. It's not important. Once we've got this kind of how we want it laid out, we can go ahead and even give ourselves another background, which is just a clear one. And that's the one we'll kind of just work against for now. I think the way that we can start this in this particular video is actually to use some of the items that are inside of the drawing scripts and put together a representation of a piano. So here's ScratchCat. And ScratchCat can, we can just hide ScratchCat. We don't need to have him at all. So we can just make a new one that is basically nothing. But we'll just go ahead and get rid of the cat himself. And we're going to call this sprite the piano sprite. And the piano sprite is going to be responsible for making sure that the piano is drawn. The piano itself is drawn. And maybe we can just zoom in here and just give this just a little dot inside here. Just like that. Something just to take up the center of the space. Something in it. But we're going to just hide this anyways. So when this thing is initially clicked, we're going to make sure that little dot just goes away. And we do that with looks. And hide. All right, so we're going to need a few variables to put our piano in. So we're going to make a few variables that have to do with this sprite. One of those is going to be the side margins, and the side margins is the number of pixels to the left and right where we're not going to be drawing the actual piano. We're going to need another one that is the bottom margin, which is for this sprite only. And that's how far from the bottom of the screen we want our piano to be drawn. Then we need to make another variable, which is for this sprite only, which happens to be the height of the piano. And the rest I think we can figure out based on what a piano actually is. All right, so let's go ahead and make, the very first thing we're going to do here is see how it is that we draw a piano. And the other thing that we're going to need to do, which I do in pretty much all of the projects that I work on, is that the stage, when the green flag is clicked, is going to broadcast a message and wait to initialize everything. So we'll make a new broadcast message called initialize variables. And our piano guy over here is going to need to handle when it receives initialized variables and then go ahead and set all those things we just set. So let's make the side margins maybe be 5. And these all are things that can change later on, of course. We're going to make the bottom margin maybe be about 30 or so, and the height we'll make for now. Let's make it maybe 100. And you know, I'm thinking too that we're going to need a second height. So let's go ahead and just make sure that these things are unambiguous. We'll make it white key height, and we'll make it black key height. So let's make sure we set the black key height. Got to be something smaller than that 100, maybe to 60, and we'll work with it from there. All right, so now let's start doing some drawing. The way that drawing works in Scratch is that you actually move your sprite over to where you want the drawing to occur. Then you put the pen down and you just move that sprite around, and then you let the pen back up again. Also, because drawing usually involves a bunch of loops inside of it, one thing we need to do is go ahead and right click and edit on this particular define block, the draw piano block. And if you select this option set here, there's a checkbox down here that says run without screen refresh, and we're going to want to check that. And the reason that helps is that if you don't check that, when Scratch starts doing some of the things that take a little bit of additional time, like if it were to do an emotion or it were to do loops or things like that, then there's usually a delay put in there as it makes the screen show that bit of what you're working on. And we don't want that to happen. We want to actually draw all of the stuff that we want to draw, and then when it's all done, then have the screen go ahead and refresh with what we've done. Okay, so what we want to do in the very beginning is go to the very first, we'll call it the top corner of the very first key, which is going to be somewhere over here on the screen, on the left, and we're going to draw one rectangle, and then we're just going to keep drawing rectangles until we get all the way across. Now we're going to need to know some things in order to do that, and some of them might be easier for us to just compute right ahead of time. So let's go ahead. I'm going to make a couple more variables here. One is going to be called white key width, and this one isn't going to be one we set outright. We're going to have to do it based on some things that have to do with the screen. And we'll go ahead and make another one called the black key width. Right, in order for me to draw a rectangle, I need to know its height and its width and its position. And we've got all of that except for the width part. Oh, did I type in height? I must have typed in height. Oh, no, I didn't. No, good. So white key width and then black key width. The white key width, now here's an interesting trivia question. How many white keys are there on a piano? A lot of people probably know there are 88 keys on a piano total, but that's the white and the black. And in one octave, there are 7 white notes. And there are 7 octaves on a piano, so that adds 49. But in addition to that, there are 3 more because a piano actually starts on A and ends on C, the key of C. So what we want to do in order to figure out the width of our white keys is actually do some math here. So what we're going to do is go over to our operators. We're going to start with a number which is the width of the screen here, which we know is 240 times 2 is 480. And we're just going to start subtracting from that till we get the amount of screen we can actually work with, which we happen to know is 2 times the side margins, like that. Oops, and this should be in white key width. 2 times the side margins, and then we just have to simply divide by the number of keys, right? This is the amount of space we have to work with. We're going to divide all of that by the number of keys on a piano, which is 52, white keys on a piano, which is 52. And the black key width is about half the size, and we'll tweak this later, of the white key width. So let's go ahead and say the white key width divided by 2, something like that. We don't need these to show up. I can run it, I suppose, really quickly to see what those values are. See this? You see that populate inside there? those are the values we got. Our piano key width is going to be about 9, and our black key is going to be about 4.5. All right, so that gives us all the variables we need to work with to draw the piano. And just kind of talking about what we need to build today and putting those variables together took up enough time that we've got our first video in this series done. In the next video, we'll do the actual drawing by putting that inside of our draw piano bit here. All right, thanks for listening. I hope this could be a fun project. I think you'll have fun with it when you start to see the end product and what it does. But it's going to take us a little while to get there. So like any bit of programming, it's all about the journey, and then you get to have fun with what you have at the end. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.